what does it mean if, like, well, I wouldn't even say what does it mean. What is the world coming to when the killer isn't a grown man, isn't a grown woman, but it's a child? I never thought I'd be hearing a video about children or looking at a video about children who killed their own families or friends, But apparently, and let me get this correctly, this video by Court on Camera, make sure you give them a follow. They posted a video about kids who did that exact thing. Hurt their families, hurt their friends, But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, and y'all let me know what you guys think in the comments, all right?
Issues are common, but usually not ones that reach the point of murder. But killers like Sierra Helth and Aaron Guerrero don't make that distinction. In Las Vegas, Nevada, the name Sin City has never been more accurate. Helth and Guerrero, both teenagers, were in a relationship disapproved of by Helth's father. Instead of trying to come to an agreement or even rebelling against her father, Sierra Helth, with the help of her boyfriend, brutally murdered her own father, and his body was found on April the 9th, 20.
I can almost guarantee you they were probably caught doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. Y'all know what I mean by that. The dad didn't like that, and when he was giving her a hard time about it, her and her boyfriend probably killed him. Well, they killed him. Ain't no probably, they did. So I can tell you that's probably what ended up happening. Got caught, wanted to do something about it.
2021. The body was found in a sleeping bag with 70 stab wounds. But that's not even the worst part.
70.
Apparently, they tried to dismember the body with saws and set it on fire before they left it in the garage. What could drive two kids to commit such a horrific act? In court, Sierra dropped a bombshell, despite her completely lifeless expression. She read a letter painting Daniel as an abuser, an addict, and pedophile, with his harassment supposedly leading to his demise. Whether or not Sierra was on the wrong end of this abuse, she clearly suffered some disturbing change, as she recorded a video days after the murder with her accomplice boyfriend, laughing and gloating about the murder in a deeply unsettling way.
Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on the camera.
It was worth it.
Regardless of their motives, justice was served for their crime, as they received life in prison with a possibility of parole after 22 years.
Goodbye.
On count 1, you're going to be sentenced to 48 to 120 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections. On count 2, you're going to be sentenced to life in the Nevada Department of Corrections with the possibility of parole after 20 years has been served, plus a consecutive 24 to 60 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections for a deadly weapon enhancement.
And while Helth may have had some twisted motive, Nemia Griego's murder spree was on another level.
Here's one thing you need to do before buying anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this first.
Care.
In New Mexico, 10 years ago, 15-year-old Nemia Griego went on an utter rampage in his own home with an AR-15 and a .22 caliber rifle. As he suddenly shot and killed his 40-year-old mother, his 9-year-old brother, his 2 sisters, aged 5 and 2,
he got life.
Patiently waited among the dead bodies for his father to arrive so that he could murder him as well. Griego left a horrific bloodbath at home as he drove to church, and the pastor informed the authorities. Shockingly, no motive whatsoever was found, other than Griego being suicidal and frustrated with his mother, but that would in no way explain how he murdered his entire family, even children. After pleading guilty, he was tried twice, once as a juvenile and once as an adult. During his adult hearing, though, Griego turned heads when he suddenly felt remorse facing those in his family who survived his rampage, apologizing to them and expressing his guilt.
I am sorry for taking our parents and our sins. I wish I could take it back. Reality is that we can't.
It wasn't enough for his sister, who broke down crying. Griego couldn't even get the sympathy of the district attorney, who seems to be haunted by this case.
As a homicide detective, I'd seen many death scenes, but this is the one I get to relive every day.
He ultimately received a life sentence, plus 7 years to run concurrently, with the possibility of parole at the age of 52. Speaking of unspeakable murderers of children, Dylan Schumacker also gets zero sympathy. Dylan Schumacker tried to make rounds in court when he broke down.
I just gotta ask, like, what, and maybe y'all can put this in the comments, but what could make a child go from like being like a normal teenager to like, I'm going to kill my whole family? Like, I just can't see, I can't imagine getting to that point. Like, what causes that right there? You know, I think this is just another reason why parents need to be super active within their children's lives and stuff, and especially in their private lives to some degree. I understand, yes, you know, they're growing up, you gotta give them some type of rope, but I also feel like that should also be monitored at the same time, just because stuff like this, like, you never truly know what's going on. You know, they said it was because he was frustrated with his mom. Is that it? Is there something else we need to know? You know, was it something happening at school or with his friends that, you know, maybe his parents didn't see and it just caused them to go crazy? Like, that's stuff to consider, you know?
And crying, but his acting skills were as bad as his consciousness. In Springville, Utah, 16-year-old Schumacker was babysitting his girlfriend's 2 children when he couldn't do the basic human task of calming down a crying 2-year-old. So he disgustingly decided to cover his head with a pillow and strike him to make him silent.
Oh,
but unsurprisingly, the damage the child received took his life. While Schumacker was clearly abusive, the prosecution and defense were at odds with a second-degree manslaughter or second-degree murder charge.
Austin Smith was completely defenseless. That's a given. But there were other dynamics at work there, including my client's inability to either control his anger or frustration and his inexperience in babysitting. What is to say he won't do this again? Well, we don't know that. I think it's completely unlikely.
But fairness is not lost in the world, and Schumacker was tried with the intention to kill and first-degree assault until he tried to put on a sympathy act in court.
I didn't mean to kill Austin. Actually, I really didn't. I really think I did this. I didn't mean to hurt him.
Dylan broke down to his girlfriend, claiming that he loved her son. But he was quickly exposed when a video came out of him saying,
I am a 16-year-old blonde. Probably all I have to do is cry in front of the jury, and they're going to feel sorry for me.
Oh, that's
the act couldn't fool the judge or jury, and Schumacker received 18 years to life with the possibility of parole in 2031. These apologies in court barely stir up any sympathy for the murderers, just like Tyler Hadley. In Port St. Lucie, Florida, 17-year-old Tyler Hadley thought out an entire murder plot straight out of a movie. He first invited a bunch of people over for a party, but they didn't know that this would be a party from hell when Hadley took 3 ecstasy pills and murdered his own mother and father, Mary Jo and Blake Hadley, with a claw hammer. During the party, the dead bodies could be smelled, and it was an extremely disturbing and tense time for Michael Mandel, to whom Tyler confessed the crime, until Mandel could leave the party and report the horrible crime. As far as motive went, this went far back to Tyler having major problems with drugs, as well as prior convictions for arson, vandalism, theft, battery, and injuring a child with his father's car, which apparently he used to steal without permission. But the last straw was his parents attempting to get him help for his drug problem. So he reacted by taking their lives and cementing his irredeemable nature. During his trial, the state really wanted to give the death penalty.
He looked guilty,
but couldn't for his age. So he was granted a life sentence that was reconsidered in 2016, but reapplied again in 2018.
I apologize and make amends for the horrible acts I've done, I committed.
This came after Hadley's brother spoke out in court.
Well, I guess what I want is for him to get the maximum penalty possible, which I understand is life in prison without parole.
Other family members who faced Tyler in court included his mother's niece.
We pray that sometime in the future he will have the opportunity to rehabilitate
and have a life on the outside.
Tyler had the nerve to speak out in court and apologize for his actions. His apology was undermined by his brother, literally asking for him to get the highest sentence possible. Disconnect from reality can also lead to disastrous horror, such as what happened with Daniel Patrick. A 16-year-old Daniel couldn't tell fact from video games when he became obsessed with video games after a skiing accident that left him with spinal injuries and too much time to spend playing games. After a disagreement with his parents over wanting to get the video game Halo, Patrick horrifically imitated the game to a disastrous degree when he stole his father's handgun from a safe and shot both his mum and his dad. While his dad survived, his mum passed away from her injuries. After fleeing the crime scene in a van, Daniel was caught by the police. Things changed dramatically in court for both Daniel and his father, who showed genuine emotion and regret in court. Daniel could be seen crying, and his dad seemed to have forgiven him, even defending his son.
I can't count the number of times he has told me that he is so sorry for what he did and he'll never be able to forgive himself. I can also count the number of times he has told me that he is so happy that I survived and so glad to still be able to see me.
With the defense and psychiatrists arguing that Daniel couldn't distinguish reality from video game fiction, Daniel could not receive the death penalty.
This is not the case of a drug fiend stash being taken away. Daniel chose, in the words of his father, he referred to him in his interview as a pathological liar. Daniel has serious problems telling the truth.
Regardless of addiction or disconnect, Daniel received life in prison with a possibility of parole after 23 years. This goes to show that forgiveness cannot stand against justice. While some argue that video games lead to violence, childhood trauma is definitely way worse, leading to cases like Seth Privacky. After being neglected by his parents, who apparently had nothing nice to say about him, Seth Privacky went on a rabbit hole of drugs and stealing that culminated in a brutal killing spree when he was only 18 years old in Muskegon, Michigan in November the 29th, 1998. Privacky would shoot.
I think the crazy part about all of this, just watching all of these sentences, is that, every single one of these kids, they're getting life. Like you got to think about it. They're doing something so bad that despite their age, we're just going to go ahead and give you life. I think for even one dude, they was just kind of like, oh, we would give you the death sentence. But, because of your age, we can't necessarily do that, I think that's the crazy part. I look back because I thought I heard something. What the freak? But yeah, let's go ahead and keep going.
Both his parents, his brother, his grandfather, and his brother's girlfriend. While the authorities could not point toward a specific motive, it was clear that a lack of love led him down this path, all the way to the courtroom, where he gave an apology that's impossible to deem genuine or not.
I'm sorry for what I did, but that's hardly enough.
Seth received life in prison without parole in 1999. Then the story got 10 times crazier a decade later, when in prison, 3 men, including Privacky, took control of a tractor-trailer and drove right through the prison fence. After the guards fired, one bullet struck Privacky straight in the head, killing him.
You think of irony, karma, what you sow, so shall you reap.
Whether it was karma or a sad tale of an unloved boy,
you ain't never getting out, buddy.
More often than not, it's mental illness that leads to horrific crimes like these, such as with Jake Evans in a Parker County, Texas mansion. 17-year-old Jake Evans one day snapped, grabbed a .22 caliber pistol, and shot his mother and young sister on a complete whim. He immediately called 911, and the call was both horrifying and saddening, as Evans is clearly suffering from severe issues.
911, where's your emergency?
My house.
Okay, what's the emergency?
I just killed my mom and my sister.
You just killed your mother and your sister? How did you do that?
I shot him with a .22 revolver.
Are you sure they're dead?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to stay on the phone with me, okay? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Where is the gun?
On the kitchen counter.
According to the call, he'd been planning to kill for quite some time, and apparently was planning on killing his other sisters and grandparents, taking inspiration from Rob Zombie's Halloween movie, and a general disconnect with human nature.
Is there any reason that you were so angry at your mother and your sister?
I don't know. I wasn't. It's weird. I wasn't even really angry with them. It just kind of happened. I've been kind of planning on killing for a while now.
The two of them, or just anybody?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
anybody.
this is a mental illness. You can tell.
I don't really like people's kind of attitude.
Right.
I think they're very.
What's up with all the ass?
No.
Like, emotional, I don't know, verbally rude to each other and stuff like that.
Right.
In court, it was an odd sight, as Evans looked no older than the adolescent he was supposed to be, pleading guilty for his crime, although controversy was stirred regarding how much prison time he should and should not be getting. He was ultimately charged with capital murder and given 45 years with a chance of parole at half his sentence. This one doesn't feel very satisfying, as this young man clearly needed psychiatric help rather than an orange jumpsuit. Speaking of some...
True, they should have gave him some help. You could tell he really needed that help. Like, he had something going on. Yeah.
Somewhat unfair rulings for those who are ill, there was a lot of sympathy for Jacob Morgan, whose status as a killer is in definite question. In South Carolina, 17-year-old Jacob Morgan was in charge of taking care of his 14-month-old baby brother, Joshua, when a fire broke out accidentally that was seemingly started by Morgan, who changed his statements from throwing a pillow near a heater to lighting the pillow on fire. Regardless of how it happened, Morgan was unable to do anything as baby Joshua tragically passed away in the flames. In court, Morgan was in shock and tears at what had transpired, and the hidden truth was that he was on the autism spectrum with a fascination with fire, which caused him to start this fire and another one 2 weeks prior.
The burn pattern that goes from underneath that child towards the door of the bedroom, that is caused by likely something. It's a significant burn pattern, as he described. It could have been alcohol, it could have been something else that gets consumed by the fire, but a significant burn pattern shows that there is something said significant and intentional.
Because of these conditions, Morgan was not charged with murder, but involuntary manslaughter, with a 10-year sentence to run consecutively with a 15-year sentence and 5 years of probation for arson.
I believe the state has, in fact, met the burden, so therefore I am going to find that there is probable cause to charge the individual with the down over for General Sessions Court.
That's sad. That
On
baby,
hearing his
that
sentence,
sad.
Morgan's expression was still saddening.
Well, I mean, we saw it for ourselves, Children can be killers, just because they might be, teenagers or, even younger than that. That doesn't mean that they aren't capable of doing some of the same evil and gruesome stuff that we see with older adults, But hey, I'll let y'all decide about that. And again, y'all tell me, how do you guys feel about this in the comments?